All right, all
All right.
right. Well, Sorel, good to be with you again.
Awesome to be with you.
Thank you all for coming, for taking your time to be here. We're truly excited to be with you.
Awesome. Welcome. And we also want to welcome everyone around the world who's watching or listening to this webinar.
Yes, thank you for joining us on this webinar. We have content and ideas and insights that can potentially shift the way that you currently are living life and doing business. So anyway, I'm truly excited. I can't wait to get started. But I guess we need to introduce ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they have to know who they're talking to, right?
Why are two people talking
Yeah.
in a webinar? So this is perfect. So
Perfect.
Go
Welcome everyone. I am here specifically because I have come up on an approach to life and business that is at once effective, also agnostic, and affordable. Now, what do I mean by that? It works for everyone, anyone, anywhere, under any circumstances. And both Joe and I will validate that as we go on. It's also effective, regardless of what you're dealing with in life or in business. This approach gives you the opportunity and the tools to actually uncover and discover what's stopping you, and you get unstuck.
particularly in that transition where you're in some degree living your life for a number of years as an employee, and now you're looking at winning the money game as an entrepreneur, right? So we're
Yeah.
going to be diving into that conversation.
Absolutely. And not just when you're making that transition. Yes, it's very effective to create that transition, but you may also be an entrepreneur who's been in business for 2 or 3 years and you're stuck in one place.
Yeah.
Or you may be considering leaving your business. That approach will work for you as well.
Phenomenal. Do you want to tell them
Yeah.
a little bit about you?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? So what you want to know is that, I'll just tell you a little story, right? It was June 2007. And here I am eating lunch with the VP of operations of a major Fortune 500 company. And he looked at me and said, wait a minute, your company has never worked in this industry. You have never done a project in that industry, and you want us to hire you. And I looked at him straight in the eyes and I said, yes, trust me, give us a try. I promise you will not be disappointed. Well, that was just 6 days after I had taken this course. And the approaches I learned and gathered for myself gave me what I needed to stand in a place where I knew nothing, I had nothing, and I could promise the world to a potential client. Now, I introduce myself that way because that's the promise I am for you. And that's the promise I am for you watching this webinar. So we're going to dive into that. Now, just so they can know they're in great hands, right? I've got the gray beard.
Yeah.
So you can tell that I've got ears, but I also have experience. I've been leading transformational seminars for over 15 to 20 years. And I have been in corporate America, and I have made that transition from employee to entrepreneur myself. And I have been in places specifically somewhere around 2006, 2007, and 2008, where the business was tanking, and I had to put everything I had in it. I considered quitting, and yet I didn't. And I want you to know, not only was I resilient and courageous, but I couldn't be that way without the approach that we're sharing with you in this webinar.
Yeah. And my name, I think I said it before, but my name is Giovanni Gonzalez, and I've been in the US for about 20 years or so. My first gig was to sell newspapers at traffic lights, and then eventually I moved to in the restaurant industry where I was a cook and a dishwasher and waiter, and then I got a promotion. I became a driver, and then eventually I got a sense of a whole big world, which I'm very passionate about, which is growth and development. And that world gave me access to go to school, right? Like to believe in a vision for myself where going to school was a big deal. And while I was going through school, have you guys ever read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad? It's a really powerful book by Robert Kiyosaki. And I started to get a sense that if I wanted to win the money game, I needed to understand how businesses work. It wasn't necessarily just about knowledge on the traditional way. It was also about understanding how business work. And it became my passion to understand it. So while I was going through school, I started small businesses that will help other businesses grow, like a marketing kind of business. And I started having some success with that, and I started paying my way through school with that. And then by the time I graduated, I had some real estate, and I had some houses, and well, that's the same thing, right? I had some real estate, and I had some cars, and I was taking vacations and playing golf in different countries. Things were like juicy. And somewhere around 2008, right, like a lot of people, my businesses started going down. And as a symbol for being fearless, I decided to go skydiving. And the landing didn't go well, and I broke my leg. And I completely shattered the tibia and the fibula, and I couldn't walk for about 6 to 8 months. So I slowly started losing everything I've built. However, in the process, I knew I already had the principles and I had the foundation to be able to pick my life up again. And like I knew it, even though I was losing my houses, even though I was losing what I had created. And as I started building my life again, I started under a foundation of when you help people get what they want, you get what you want. Now there's an art to that, right? That we're going to be talking about today. And then 10 years later, I started working for a very large training and development company where I traveled to different countries. I went to Africa, South America, worked with Fortune 500 companies. And to now, a few years ago, we created a whole course, a 3-day course to help people make a transition, a powerful transition to becoming really powerful with their lives and create declarations and take the steps that can actually give you effectiveness in life. So that's what we're about. That's a little bit of my introduction. So I'm going to leave you creating this, and then I'll be back in a minute.
Well,
Yeah.
come back. Well, I'll actually call you back so you know when to come back.
Very good.
All right? Good
Very
deal.
good.
Good
Yeah.
deal. So you've heard from Giovanni, you've heard from me. Like that's us as human beings, right? And now I want to have a conversation with you to actually deal with what it takes to make the transition from employee to entrepreneur, or to be an entrepreneur and be dealing with what it's like to be an entrepreneur and staying the course anyway. And get to the space where you're thriving and what you're creating is something that can be a legacy. So it doesn't happen just by miracle. It actually takes something, right? And it takes dealing and acknowledging the problems that an entrepreneur faces to be an entrepreneur. Now, one of the first problems that entrepreneurs face is actually making the transition. How many of you have contemplated being an entrepreneur and you've done that for a long time? Raise your hand. How long? At least 20 years. Now, if you're out there, I don't care if you're in India or China, that particular opportunity in life where you're stuck and you have to get unstuck is something to deal with, isn't it? Now, when you've been waiting for 20 years, you look at every aspect of it. And one of the things that happens mostly to people who want to be entrepreneurs is that you wait so long that every year you wait, every other day you wait, every other minute you wait actually adds to the mass of your opinion of you. That says, oh my God, if I have been waiting so long to get it done, maybe I'll never get it done. That's one of the first problems. The second problem is actually, how do you deal with all the work that there is to do to be an entrepreneur? Most people become entrepreneurs, I'd say, accidentally. And here's how the accident happens. You're really good at what you do, and your boss got on your nerve that day. And you go, I can do this better than her. I can do that better than him. Why am I here? And you quit. And when you quit, you decide to be an entrepreneur. That's what I call being an entrepreneur accidentally. And when you do that, guess what? You face the biggest problem there is. You suddenly discover that who you are now is still an employee, except you're working for yourself. And there are so many hats to wear. There's the hat of the business planner. There's the hat of the accountant. There's the hat of the project manager. There's the hat of the marketer. There's the hat of the salesperson. There's the hat of the human resource director. You recruit, you hire, you fire. It's you and only you. And you know what? At first, that's necessary. You actually need to do that when you first start. But how do you make that transition from being all of it, wearing all the hats, to someone who's actually running a business? Running a business is way different from owning your job. That's one of the other problems. Now, here's another problem. How many of you would say that you work more as an employee than you work when you own your own business? Not too many. You're not going to admit that. But you know what? Most people leave a job so they can have freedom. I want to be free. I want to be my own person. I want to run my life. I want to get up whenever I want, and I want to leave when I want. Except it takes a long time and a lot of work to wear all these hats. Starting out, most entrepreneurs will work over 60 hours a week. Now, how do you work 60 hours a week, create, grow, run a business, and yet spend time with your family, spend time with your friends, spend time with yourself, and be someone who actually makes the transition from being in your business to being a human being living a life? Well, you know, the approach that we're talking about, I mentioned earlier that it's agnostic. It means it doesn't matter where you are. You may be someone who's just making the transition from an employee to an entrepreneur. And you know the problem that's there, right? You're stuck. You're afraid. You don't want to make that decision because guess what? You're getting a paycheck right now and you don't know how you're going to survive when you make the leap. Well, this approach will get you unstuck. It works for that. It's effective in many, many ways. You may actually be someone who says, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do. My wife is about to leave me. I haven't been to a soccer game in 5 years. My kids don't know me. I don't know them. I haven't slept in many days. I'm growing bags under my eyes. I think I need to quit. Well, guess what? This approach will also work in that case. Last but not least, you may be that person who says, you know what? If I want it done right, I've got to do it myself. Not only do you wear all the hats, but when people come around to help you, guess what you say? No, stay away. I've got to do it because I know how to do it right and no one else can. Well, you can use this approach to actually create your dream and live that dream too. That's the approach we're talking about. So now, I want you to do something with me. Participate for just a moment. And if when you're out there, whether you're watching this in the comfort of your living room or your bedroom, I really want you to now take a look and acknowledge these problems that have been stopping you for yourself. Do you know, many of you are saying right now, hey, Sorrel, my situation is different. The challenges I face are really impossible to uncover. And these challenges, how do you balance your personal life and professional life? How do you deal with anxiety? Trying to win the game of business. How do you create a high-performing team while connecting them to a long-term vision? How do you maximize and navigate between traditional marketing and up? In a few minutes, my partner Giovanni is going to present to you some of the solutions that deal with that. But these solutions may not matter until you actually deal with the fact that the problems themselves, there is a mechanism in our approach that gives you the opportunity to actually confront those problems and see where you yourself are at the source of these problems. And you know what? Even if you're saying right now that your problems are insurmountable, I submit to you that, you know what? Your concern is valid. What you're dealing with is valid because guess what? The SBA points to the fact that over 30% of businesses fail in the first 2 years. Over 50% fail in the first 5 years. And every business owner you encounter will complain about these 4 problems. And those who fail within the first 2 to 5 years have failed to do one thing. They've failed to make the transition from employee to entrepreneur. They've failed to make the transition from someone who's a victim of the problems to someone who's actually creating a life and a business. This approach and the solution we're offering does just that. Imagine this. You're a business owner. You're generating tons and tons of revenue. And we come in and you say to us, I need more sales because I'm not making any money. That's actually a real story. One of our clients was actually generating over $8 million and only generating about $8,000 in net profits. Came to us and said, I need more clients. We looked at him and said, no, you need a new relationship to your financials. Many, many times, what is the difference between failing and succeeding as an entrepreneur is nothing more than a small tweak that resides in your personal relationship with some aspect of your business that's living in the past. And I want to bring my friend Giovanni up right now to give you a sense of the critical need for business owners and people in life to divorce themselves from their past. And you know what? That's one of the toughest things to do. And this approach gives you the power to do just that. Giovanni, come on up, my friend.
Sorrel, that was amazing. Yeah, well done. I was thinking myself as I was listening to Sorrel, man, I just want Sorrel to keep going. This is pretty cool, isn't he? Yes. It's like really quite insightful. Like I am there. I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling that way too. Yeah, I get it. I get that pain. Yeah, completely. So that was really great. Thank you for introducing it that way. And one of the things that I'm committed to is that as you see the scope of what Sorrel is presenting, I want you to walk away with some tools and some insights that give you access for you to have a new relationship with what you're dealing with against those problems, against those challenges. Yeah? Yeah, makes sense. And in this opportunity, as I'm going to be creating it, I want you to feel free to raise your hand so that we can interact and I can get a good sense of maybe how this applies to you where you're at. Yeah? Makes sense? Okay, so one of the things that's challenging in making that transition, and it's quite painful. It really is painful when you're going from being an employee. You know, this is something that we are very used to. Being an employee is like being a student. You got to show up at a particular time of the day, and then you have to leave at a particular time of the day. And then you have to take a break at a particular time of the day, and then you have to take lunch at a particular time of the day. Does that make sense? Do you guys communicate? It's like being a student. And it's a critical aspect of growing a business to have that kind of structure. However, it begins to limit your opportunity to be creative once you start making that transition. Because the transition is, for most business owners, it's about freedom. Most business owners want freedom. I just want freedom. I just want freedom. So when they quit or when they start their business, guess what they're looking for? Freedom. And starting a business to have freedom is like having a baby so that you can have more time. It's like, it doesn't go together. It really doesn't go together. Yet people talk about, start your business so you can own your own time. That's a rather tricky thing to say, because there are certain aspects that I want to introduce and I want you to live with about being in business that's critical. And one of them is your relationship with being free. It's not about freedom that gives you access to freedom. It's about listening for what makes a difference to your clients. Anyways, we're going to be talking that a little bit more about that in a minute. Yeah? Okay, so here's something I want you to notice for yourself. Okay, here's something I want you to notice for yourself. There is what you know, and then there is what uses you. When you have a job, you know a lot of stuff. When you're doing something, you know stuff. Make sense? But what you know is not what uses you. What you know is something that you use, but it's not something that uses you. Does that make sense? You could say, I know it doesn't make sense. Because this is where the transition happens. This is what makes it difficult. There is the stuff that you know. Okay? You got to get closer to these conversations so it makes a difference. There's the stuff that you know. And we're going to talk about some of the stuff you know. Like who your client is, who does your product serves to, where could your clients be, right? There's like the stuff that you know about your product. There is the stuff that you know. Make sense? But the stuff that you know is not the stuff that uses you. For example, how many of you have dealt with being, what do you call that person who procrastinates? How many of you deal with procrastination? Like everybody raises their hand. Procrastination means when you leave something until the last minute. That's procrastination. So you could say that procrastination uses you. Because you don't want to be someone who procrastinates, yet you do. How many of you know that in a particular area of your business or in a particular area of life, you are unorganized? You're just disorganized. You're not organized. How many of you know, right? And it doesn't work for you. And yet, you still do it. So one could say that's using you. So the knowledge that you have, it's not useful for the transition to being a business owner. Make sense? For the transition to being effective. How many of you know that acknowledging people and empowering people actually makes a difference to performance? How many of you know that? Yeah. Yet, what most people do is to look for what's wrong with somebody, to criticize somebody, to give them quick feedback without an acknowledgement. Because that's using you rather than being effective. Does that make sense?
Yes.
There's what you know and there's what uses you. You want to be powerful in business. You want to start getting really interested in what uses you. This is why so many people give so many courses online and they make these crazy promises. And people buy courses online, right? And they cost $2,000, $10,000, $5,000. And only about 7% or 6% of the people that ever buy a course actually finishes it. So 97% of the people, 96% of the people never even finish it. Because what uses them is not knowledge. Make sense? So the approach that Sorel is pointing to is the kind of training, the kind of education that gives you access for you to get a sense of what's running the show in your life. And it's not your knowledge. But we're thirsty for, like recipes and, stuff like that, which don't really work. But even so, since we're so thirsty for recipes, I'm going to give you some knowledge that is useful, okay? Yeah?
Okay.
All right, cool. So, when you start your business, in the middle of having a business, or every year, you got to get a sense of where you're going. And that's the aspect of vision. How many of you knew that you need a vision for your business? Everybody knows that. Now, not everybody has it in front of their office, and they get to see it. They get to see the compass of where you're going. Make sense? You got to have it. Because the vision is like the GPS. If you don't have that vision that kind of gives you a sense of direction, your brain goes anywhere during the day. Make sense?
Yes.
Now, the vision is critical. Like, you got to sit with your team, or you got to sit with yourself, and you got to say, so what do I want for 2020? What do I want for 2021? What do I want to create? And you got to write it down. You don't write it down, your brain will keep looking for opportunities like anywhere. All of a sudden, you have this particular vision, and then somebody calls you and says, hey, you want to go to Spain? And you're like, yeah, let's go to Spain. For what? For freedom. Well, what about the business? It's about the experience, man. And then, no effectiveness in business. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the vision gives you that direction. You got to have it. But the vision is not what uses you. What uses you is your mission. What's the purpose for your actions? What's the purpose for your business? The mission, the legacy, to protect families, to clean water, to give people freedom of what? What is the purpose, which is different to where you want to be? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You got to write it down, because the mission begins to use you. You become a purpose-driven individual. When you become a purpose-driven individual, you have access to high performance. Before that, all the knowledge that you have will sabotage you. Even if you make money, you'll be sabotaged by the money you make. Because a person without purpose is a person who tends to be unsatisfied constantly. Make sense?
Repeat.
Yeah, a person without purpose is a person that tends to be unsatisfied constantly. Because the purpose is what you live every day. Makes sense? So this is good content. I know you heard it before, but you've got to do the work of writing it down, right? Now, here's to the big challenge of how to lead people. I'm going to give you a little nugget on how to lead people. Now, this is actually a secret. Really. We get paid good money to tell you what I'm about to tell you and implement it, okay? When you're creating your vision, when you're creating your mission, at some point it begins to grow, and you get to have people around you supporting it, either people you hire or people that come along with you. Here's the nugget for you to remember for the rest of your life. People support what they create. So when you start creating something, when you have a vision, and then you bring somebody and you just start telling them what to do, they're going to resist you. Even if it makes sense. How many times have you heard someone say, I told them what they needed to do and they did something else? How many times have you heard that? All the time, right? People support what they create. So when you are creating something big, you got to create it with them. You got to see where they have skin in the game. You got to see what they think. You got to create it with people. And it's a painful thing to do, but it gives you a whole new future for you and for them and whatever you're committed to. Make sense? Now, once that's happening, then you can delegate. Then you start delegating. You got to let people deal with the pain of getting results, because they have to discover for themselves who they are. You can't tell them who they are. They have to discover it. Make sense? And that's the process of delegation. You take away delegation, you take away their power. You got to delegate and empower them. And then deal with it. Now, when you start doing this kind of like little science, little equation, you start creating leaders around you, high-performing people around you. Yeah, very good. Okay, so that's one of the challenges. I know as I'm looking at your faces, right? You're looking at me and you're like, keep going about this, right? But that's one of the challenges. That's one of the challenges. We're going to go to the next challenge. Yeah, the next challenge is that when business owners begin a business, when an entrepreneur begins a business, I know you think that you don't have this. I think I don't have this, but I keep looking at this constantly. And that's, who are you really serving? I remember when I started my business like a zillion years ago, I thought, everybody I'm serving. I'm serving every single person. Everybody needs what I do. Hello? But it's not necessarily that way. I want you to take your time and really look at what's the niche of the market that actually uses what I'm doing right now. But right now, like today, like for example, if you were a realtor, right? And you ask yourself that question, well, maybe people somewhere around their 28 and 40s are getting married and they probably want to move into a new house. Yeah, those are people that are looking to buy a house. They just got married. Yeah? Or people who are getting divorced, 40s to their 50s, downsizing. These are other people that are looking to sell a house. Yeah? Just you begin to understand that the market is currently set up in a way looking for what you do. But you got to understand that niche. You got to understand the age. You got to understand the demographics. You got to understand the kind of money they need to make. You got to understand their psychology. In other words, when they wake up in the morning, they're worried about something. When they go to bed, they're worried about something. You want to understand that psychology. Because when you start doing your marketing, you want to use the words that they are already using in their head. So that when you put something on social media or you put something in a magazine, whenever you put something, you're going to use the words that they are already using in their head, not your words. Does that make sense? Yeah, that took some time for me to understand. To actually use the language of the customers that I'm already serving rather than my language. Even though I like mine a little bit better. But my language doesn't sell anything. I don't make any money with my language. I got to use the language of my customers. The pain of my customers. Right? Make sense? So this is another challenge, right? It's very critical to understand. The other one is ability and willingness to pay. Look, I'm going to give you something that took me some time to get to understand also, is that people move for pain more than pleasure. People move. They take actions more to avoid pain rather than to have pleasure. And so your marketing, right? And once you understand the demographics, once you understand your customers, you want to understand their pain and you want to speak about the pain, right? Like say, for example, I am a relationship coach. See, I'm not a relationship coach. A lot of couples look at me, but I'm not a relationship coach, right? Now, I understand relationships. I am in one. I understand relationships. But if I was going to market to find couples to support, I'm not going to say something like, would you like to have a great Friday evening with your significant other, enjoy a really nice piece of wine, a glass of wine and a meat, and just enjoy a nice walk in the park? Call me. You know, someone who looks at that will be like, maybe I'll do it, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of busy. Things are happening. But if the ad says something like, if you don't take a new action, you may lose half of your assets. Your wife will leave with your best friend. You will never see what you want see in the future, and your children won't remember your name. You want to make your relationship work? Call me. What do you think that person's going to do? Call me, because it's avoid pain. You see the difference?
Yes, sir.
You want to use language that speaks to the pain rather than the pleasure. So if you want some sort of equation for marketing, it's 80% pain, 20% the paradise. Make sense? So it's critical that you understand those things. And when you're making that transition, sometimes we don't know those things. And it takes a lot of time, right? It took me a lot of time, a lot of money to get to be able to share what I'm sharing with you right now, right? And then the next one is this whole world of social media marketing and traditional marketing. Oh boy, that is a challenging one. That's a really challenging one. Because right now, social media is kind of like being sold like the next lottery ticket. You put something on social media, you won the lottery, you're going to make a lot of money. Every single business owner I know has been spending and spending and spending and spending money, not getting much conversion. Because social media is a different kind of animal. You got to understand it. It is exactly where people are. I'm approaching people through social media, but how to get a connection is completely different. Yeah? It's not they look at this, you guys are looking at this webinar right now and you're going to develop a relationship with me and buy from me. No, it's not like that. It's a relationship that I'm building over time through the content I'm delivering. Yeah? And it's over time. I'm developing a relationship. Does that make sense? Exactly like if you go to someone that someone referred you to, you don't start selling them right away. You start developing a relationship. It applies the same way. You start dating somebody. On the first date, you say, hey, would you like to get married and have 3 children? Very unlikely it's going to work out. Very unlikely. You need to develop the relationship. Maybe for some has worked out. Yeah. Or it didn't work out. So you guys get the point. Now, here's something I want to say. Here's why social media is so powerful. I want you to consider that social media is a little bit like the highway when you're driving. When you're in the highway, you're driving, all of a sudden you see like a billboard when you're driving. You don't really pay attention. But since you do this every day, all of a sudden now you start noticing who are the people on the billboard. Now you start kind of developing a relationship with the billboard. Yeah, and you're like, oh, that's what it says today, right? Social media is a little bit like that. It takes about, I think currently it takes about 18 times for someone to see something before they are engaged. So it takes a long time. So you need to be persistent in social media, really persistent. Yeah? And you want to understand the language that hooks people. Yeah? The language that hooks people. You want to understand that. Now, that's a whole world around that I'm not going to get into today, but we will get into if you choose to continue the relationship with us. We're going to get into that kind of language. And then, this is the most powerful one. This is the most powerful conversation we can have. And unfortunately, is the conversation that most people dismiss and they leave it for another day. And it's the conversation of integrity. But what I mean by integrity is by who you are in business creates an expectation of people out there. So whenever you say you're going to do something, you've got to do what you say when you said you were going to do it. That begins to create a domino effect for the opportunity of referrals that you can't imagine. However, and in the whole process of the business, you've got to have integrity in the whole process. Now, most people get good at marketing what they're good at, but they never get good at the process of delivering with integrity, and they go out of business. So the biggest hat to look at if you're already in business or if you're starting a business is, do I keep the promises I make with people? And I'm talking about anyone in your life, not just the clients. Because how you do something is how you do everything. So if you practice having integrity in your life with the people, your children, your cousins, your world, likely you're going to have integrity with the clients. So where you check to see if you have integrity is with the people who are closest to you. If the people closest to you are afraid, likely you're going to be a shitty boss because they're going to be afraid of you. And that doesn't work nowadays. Make sense? Yeah, very good. Okay. So, now, for those of you who are already in business, this is the one tip we're going to give you today, that you can count on growing your business. Every single business owner I visit, someone who has already started in business, they already know how to get customers. They know that if they do certain activities, they get customers. Now, they do a lot of stuff, but there are like 2 or 3 activities that they know that if they do, they get a customer. But they don't really do them most of the day. They just do a lot of other stuff. But now when they run out of money, they go to these particular activities that they know to do to get customers. So now when you look at your business and when you look at what you're already doing, look for what are the real actions that I take to make money. And it usually are very simple. It's like pick up the phone and call someone who knows someone, or pick up the phone and call a particular place, or they're very simple actions. So since I don't have the chance to be coaching right now today, I'm going to leave you with that seed. Look at the actions that you're already doing to make your money and start expanding on those actions, creating a lot of activity around the actions that actually get your result, not everything else. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, there's a big opportunity of coaching on that area. Now, here's one of my favorite graphs. I hope that you guys can see it. This is one of my favorite graphs because this is the graph that has made the most money for me in my life and for my clients as well when I get to implement it. And so it takes a little bit to explain, but let's see if I can do it in the next 3 minutes. Whenever you take an action today in order to make money, it will not create money today. It's going to create money 3 months from now, 2.5 to 3 months from now. The actions that you take today create money 3.5 months from now. So you've noticed that when you run out of money, you start taking a lot of actions. Have you noticed that? And then all of a sudden you get clients and you get business and you get really busy. But guess what happens when you get really busy? You stop taking the actions that make you money. So you go through this kind of cycle, right? Of taking a lot of action, not taking actions because now you have activity and you have money, but you stop taking the actions. And so you again don't have any money. And you go through a roller coaster. So now the key to be effective in business is that you never stop taking actions to make you money. You never stop making those phone calls to get new clients. You never do. And at some point, it looks like getting a salesperson in your team. You've got to have daily actions to look for that one more customer, to develop one more relationship. In my experience, most of our clients who are really struggling creating more money, it's not because they don't know, it's because they stop doing the daily actions to create a customer. They start doing other actions. Make sense? Very good. So, anybody has a question? Maybe too many questions, so you can't even ask one? Right? Not anyone right now? Okay, very good. Now, Sorel and I want to speak to you about an opportunity for you to consider, and if you're looking at this online, also an opportunity for you to consider, right? This is, for me, what has made the biggest difference in my life. Like, you know, like when you look at your life 10 years down 10 years down the road, right? When you look at your life, you know there are specific things that made a difference to be effective, right? And if you could just put them all together in 3 days rather than in 10 years, it can propel the rest of your life in a whole different way. So that's the opportunity that we want to talk to you about.
And that opportunity coming on the heels of all the tips and all the nuggets that Giovanni went through, which are necessary, right? Because to be in business is to be knowledgeable. To be in business is to have the right skills. Yet Giovanni said something spectacular at the beginning of his talk, right?
Tell them.
You know what to do. You don't do it. You know you don't want to procrastinate, yet you do. So there is a clear distinction between what's using you and what you know. So all the tips we just gave you, yes, they're necessary. But it now falls in the category of what you know. And this course, this opportunity, gets you in the realm of what's using you and has been using you for years. So much so that you're not even aware that it's using you.
Yeah.
So, Giovanni and I, and everybody else in the world who are pundits, could stand here or sit in universities all over the world or publish videos on YouTube until the cows fly. Or is it the pigs? Right? Either way, what's using you is so pervasive that all the knowledge in the world won't make a single difference.
And you could see it happening now. There is more knowledge now than ever before available to most people for free. You know, there is somewhere around, Sorel and I was looking at this statistic the other day. It's like 1.3 billion websites out there with content, right? YouTube.
And hundreds of thousands of hours of videos uploaded on a daily basis.
Knowledge is doubling every, I think, 8 hours now. And people are no more happier, no more wealthier, no more satisfied. In fact, people are more depressed now than before.
And no more successful in business either.
And it has something to do that people don't know how to have access to what uses them.
And that is the promise of Access the Leader Within. This 3-day course that starts on March 27th. I mean, on day one, you get access to the primary thing that uses you. And we call it the past. In day two, you actually get your attachment to the past. And when I say the past, I don't mean yesterday or the day before or last year. I mean the you that you have wound up being as a result of what you heard, what you read, what you lived, what you learned. And guess what? If anybody asks you, you'll say, that's me. Well, in this course, what do we discover?
You get to free yourself from what you say you are that keeps you stuck. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Essentially, who you say you are, that you love so much, who you say you are, that you'll defend to the death, who you say you are, that gets offended when people actually contradict that, who you say you are, that you advertise every day, to the point where you teach people in your life how to interact with you because they have to respect who you say you are.
And you're not effective in your life.
Exactly, because you're busy being you.
Being you and defending being you. And you are still broke. Make sense? So, does that make sense? So, those are the first 2 days. And the third day, once we do the heavy lifting, then we go into this very profound entrepreneur day, where we take all these distinctions that we just talked about and we start really pulling them apart so that you can live with that vision, you can live with that strategic future created, you can live with a real strategy for yourself to create in your business and how to get other people to contribute to your business. And it's a whole day around that.
And that's the real power of the course, right? we're not saying that learning isn't necessary. What we're saying is that who's learning can't use what it's learning. And it's essential to spend day 1 and day 2 dismantling, undoing, killing, ravaging, stabbing who you've known yourself to be, so that what you get as information can be useful. And it can use you as opposed to the past using you. That is the opportunity.
So this is how it lays out, right? This is what you got available for yourself. Between Sorrel and I, we have over 30 years of experience leading organizations and leading teams, creating record-breaking results, right? And if you hire any coach like that for 3 days, it's going to cost you way over $5,000. But we're going to say it's about $5,000. Now, when the course is done, we're not done with you. We're going to give you 5 sessions online every single week so that we can keep, building the muscle of what you learned and what you created and what you discover in the course.
Now,
and that is $500.
and those 5 sessions are like gold. You know why? Because guess what? You have been the you that you have been protecting and defending for ages. Some of you 30 years, some of you 20 years, some of you 15. And others maybe 60, right? So it doesn't get undone in 3 days.
Yeah.
It takes practice to undo it every day. So the other thing you leave this course with is the capacity to be someone who can remake and invent yourself day after day after day. And you will know how to do that and do that effectively. Not just do that for you, but do that for the people who are your partners in business.
Yeah. And depending on where you are in the journey, this will use you for the rest of your life. And for those of you who are very new, it is the beginning of the rest of your life. I can say that for sure. So this is more or less the value that you would pay if you go anywhere to get this kind of course, right? So these are some of the testimonials of the people that we have had a chance to work with, right? This is Angela. She's the co-founder and CEO of an insurance company. And she says, so Giovanni is an excellent coach. I hired him to take my company to the next level. And the breakthroughs we have gotten are amazing, right? His capacity to take the knowledge and applies it to himself is amazing, right? There is Stephen Rosenthal, a cardiologist who had a chance to work with us as well. He says the capacity for us to create results are unbelievable. I had the chance to have the president and CEO of the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce attend one of my courses. And he says, from my encounter with his work, I see the quality of his content and his authentic delivery, which one is very impressive, very refreshing, very challenging, and very transformative, right? So if you go to our website, you'll see easily over 25 testimonials of people who have attended the course, right? And so we're not trying something. This is not something we're just kind of trying out. You can see for yourself the testimonials of the people that are on our website, and we'll leave that information for you to take a look at that.
Yeah, so it is effective.
So
Not just for them, for you.
So how much do you pay if you do it before February 14th, right? We're going to give you this early bird. For you to attend the course will be $297 before February 14th. $297. $297 is not even the tires of your car if you get a flat tire. Yeah? And you can bring someone with you. Now, why do we want you to bring someone with you? Because you're a function of your environment. If you can transform your environment, you can transform your life. It's not just about you, it's about the environment. So you want to bring as many people as possible so that you can start transforming the environment that you're in.
And that's critical because the environment you've been living in has shaped the you that you've been defending. So it's essential that you now start to surround yourself with people who will actually support you in the creation and sustaining of a new environment, one designed to produce high performance, not just today, but for the rest of your life. So, no kidding. This is not a gimmick where we're telling you it's worth $5,500 and we're giving it to you for $297 so you can bite. No, that would be an insult. We are actually committed to the transformation of entrepreneurs. And that's why we're doing this.
And that's exactly why we're here.
Yeah.
And here, look, you have been unbelievably generous with us. Thank you so much for being here live, and thank you so much for tuning in and giving us a chance to get to your home and giving us a chance to get to a little part of your life. We're thrilled, excited, and honored to have been part of you this evening. Thank you so much for your attention.
And thank you for your attention. But your thanks to us and your acknowledgement of us will be your action. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. There's a link below the screen. You want to click it right now and take that action. Because guess what? I know for sure your brain right now is saying to you, I'll do that later. Or I don't need that. Or I've got tons of books. Well, take the action right now. That very action will be your first act of defying the you that you've been defending. So thank you. And thank you.
Thank you.